We continue our spring training player previews with a guy whose health and dependability could be quite significant to the Cardinals' success in 2024, Steven Matz. This is Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinal fans. I'm JD Haffern, and I'm a national radio sports anchor born and raised in the Lou, and a lifetime Cardinals fan. And I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter X at JD Sports Radio. The podcast also available on Twitter X at LO_Cardinals. We want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you can get your podcast. So if you are looking for us in the audio version, available there. Obviously, if you're already watching on YouTube, you know you can find us on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe and comment. That way you're interacting with us. Hit the notification button so you know when new episodes are posted. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So the players are slowly but surely arriving in Jupiter. Some have already been there for a bit, but the pitchers and catchers' first official workout will be on Wednesday. So baseball season starting to heat up a little bit, which is very exciting because we're starting to see some of our guys in action. We've been talking about them for so long, and this offseason just feels like it's been forever, at least for me. I don't know about you, but I think more of it is because we had such a bad year. The Cardinals were so bad that you just want to start the new one as soon as possible. That way you can prove to everybody that they weren't as bad as everything seemed last year, and that they've made the proper moves to make themselves a contender in 2024. So I'm anxious to get things started. I'm sure you are too. Each year, teams make their way to Arizona or Florida, which is where the Cardinals are. And there's always that sense of hope, right? Even for franchises that had terrible seasons the year before. New season, new year, new players, new coaches. Everyone starts with a fresh slate. And for the first time in a long time, the Cardinals are one of those teams that was really, really bad this previous season. A disastrous 2023, which saw them plummet to 71-91, one of the biggest disappointments in all of baseball. And when you look back at last year, and it's no secret to where the weakest part of the team was coming into the season, it was the pitching staff. Everybody said that. It wasn't something that we were like, they might be okay. No, everybody thought that the pitching was a little underwhelming. If there was something you were going to point out about the 2023 Cardinals that going into the year, you were like, I don't know, it was pitching. It was pitching right away. We knew it. Fans knew it. The front office has all but admitted that they fudged things up by not doing more. So this offseason, they've made drastic changes to the rotation and to the bullpen. But one guy who remains from the mess that was 2023 is Steven Matz, much to the dismay of some fans. I've been fielding comments from people since the middle of last year saying, trade Matz, get rid of Matz. Why do we have Matz? First off, he's under contract for a couple of more seasons. You still got this year and next year under that 4-year, $44 million deal that he signed as a free agent in 2021. Second off, if you were to trade him, like, who wants him? Who was actively trying to get Steven Matz from you? And what exactly did you think you were going to get in return for Steven Matz? A guy that, since he's been a Cardinal, has had a rough go. Hasn't been able to stay healthy. When they signed him in 2021, people weren't all that excited about it. I thought it was an okay move. I had worried about his health since his time with the Mets, and 2021, when they signed him, he was coming off arguably his best season as a Major League Baseball player. 14-7, 3.82 ERA, had an ERA plus of 117. I mean, what would that fetch you in today's market? The way that people are scrambling for pitching. 14-7, 3.82, left-handed, 30 years old at the time. ERA plus 117. I mean, he would have been sought after by a lot of teams. The most important numbers for him that season were probably the fact that he had 29 starts and 150 plus innings pitched. He was healthy, he was reliable, and when Steven Matz is capable of pitching and not hurt or returning from an injury, he has shown that he can be a pretty good pitcher in this league. He's not a top of the rotation guy. We know that. He wasn't signed to be the top of the rotation guy when the Cardinals got him that year either. He was supposed to be a 4 or a 5 guy to go along with Michaelis, Wainwright, and Jack Flaherty as your top 3. And then guys like Jake Woodford, Dakota Hudson, they would slide in as your number 5. But due to a variety of injuries, Flaherty only made 8 starts, which bumped the newly signed Matz up a notch in the rotation. He had 2 really bad outings early on against the Pirates and the Giants that made things look a little bit worse than they really were when you go and check out his overall numbers in 2022. And people were very upset at his performance. And then he started dealing with injuries, which didn't help matters. Misses all of June. And then in his first game back, he hurts his knee in Cincinnati. And now you've got Matt's out, Flaherty's out. So the Cardinals' decision, because they were still obviously in contention, they were still going for a division title that year. They go out at the deadline and Mo grabs Jose Quintana from the Pirates and Jordan Montgomery from the Yankees. And I would say those were some pretty solid moves, wouldn't you? I mean, as much as we hammer and crush Mo for some of the things that he does that don't work out, those 2 were some pretty nice pieces that he was able to add to that team. It was unfortunate that they didn't go anywhere and ended up getting beat by Philadelphia in the playoffs. Matt's pitched well out of the bullpen in the end of 2022, which gave us some hope that 2023, if healthy, Matt's would once again be a really good 4 or 5 in the rotation. Now, the idea was, and I didn't say it was a good idea, I just said it was the idea, was to run it back with Wainwright for 1 more year, despite the ugly end to his 2022 season. And then you had Michaelis, Flaherty, Jordan Montgomery's in there now, plus Matz. And on paper, they thought that was going to be good enough to win the NL Central or at least get him into the wild card. Unfortunately, Waino was terrible. Michaelis wasn't nearly the same guy. Flaherty was inconsistent. Match just wasn't all that good. Jordan Montgomery was good, but when only one of the 5 guys that you thought were going to be solid this year, that's all you got, you're in trouble. And it put the Cardinals in an immediate hole last year at 10-19 by the end of April, and they were never able to dig themselves out of that hole. They just couldn't do it. It just never clicked for long enough for them to make up that much ground. And Matt struggled so much last year at the beginning of the year that he ends up getting demoted from the rotation. That's how bad he was. So we're going to discuss his up and down roller coaster season even more. And we'll talk about what he's done this offseason to try and stay on the field more in 2024. We'll do that next on Locked On Cardinals. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets and any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. What could you do with $150 right now? What would you spend it on? Going to get some new Cardinal gear? I've been looking at like spring training stuff, new sweatshirts because it's still chilly out there. But I'm looking forward to picking up some new gear for the season, and that's something you can put your money towards. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with Quick Bets. They've got live same game parlays, exclusive props. We're talking so many stats, and I know we do head in baseball, but even in the NBA, when you're talking about points, rebounds, steals, assists, blocks, turnover, I mean, you got all this stuff, double doubles, triple doubles, all of these things you can bet on. And if you're playing fantasy basketball and you've got an eye on how things are going, because I'm currently in first place in both my leagues, this is a way to make some extra cash and win and have fun doing it. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows, which cover every league. Go to Locked On Sports today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Again, thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. Leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter, X, anytime you want. Your feedback is always welcome and encouraged. Had a couple of episodes that we put out over the weekend talking about NL Central offseason moves, just kind of give you a heads up on what the other teams in the division have done, how they've progressed or regressed in some cases. Also talked about Alec Burleson over the weekend as well. So go check out those episodes if you haven't seen them yet. Today, we're talking about Steven Matz. And like most of the Cardinals pitchers, not named Jordan Montgomery last year, Steven Matz struggled in April. It was rough. Loses to the Braves 4-1 in his first start, allows 4 runs on 10 hits. 2 of those were home runs in just 5 1/3 innings. You're going to notice the innings total as something that you want to focus on here. He strikes out 7, and against the Braves, not really too awful of a game because we know how good Atlanta was last year, but an L all the same. Then he comes out, gets popped in Colorado in his second start, 6 earned on 9 hits in 5 2/3 innings. It happens in Colorado, right? You don't really make fun of guys who get hit in Colorado because it's a really tough place to pitch. So you don't like to see losses there, and you would hope that the offense would be able to keep up with Colorado's, but not in this game. Cardinals lose 7-4. Steven Matz drops to 0-2 on the year. His next game, he gives up 2 runs on just 3 hits against the Pirates, but he walks 5, and he lasts just 5 2/3 innings, gets a no decision, but the Cardinals lose the game 6-3. Start number 4 against the Mariners. 4 runs, 4 hits, 5 1/3 innings. He strikes out 7, but the Cardinals lose 5-2. No offense in that one for them. He's now 0-3. Now, start number 5 against the Giants. 2 runs on 6 hits, 3 walks. But again, the innings total in these starts, he lasts only 4 innings because his pitch count's already at 90. Cardinals lose that game 7-3. And I told you the common theme here is that he's throwing a ton of pitches. Every single one of these starts, he's at 90 or more, but unable to get through 6 innings. And we know how important that is. That puts more pressure and wear and tear on the bullpen. And when this is happening to you day in and day out, the bullpen gets worn out, and then everything turns to mush. So in April, Steven Matz goes 0-3, the ERA at 6.23. He gives up 32 hits in 26 innings. He strikes out 27, which you like that number, but he walks 18. So he's just throwing a ton of pitches. And the team loses all 5 of his starts. In fact, they lose his first 6 starts after he loses to the Angels after giving up 4 runs on 6 hits in 5 innings in his first start in May. So things aren't going well. He would make 4 more starts in the month of May. Doesn't make it through 6 innings in any of them. The team wins the next 2 games that he starts, but he doesn't get a decision in either of them. Shuts out the Dodgers for 4 2/3 innings, but again gets pulled with his pitch count at 103 already in the 5th inning. Cards eventually lose that game 5-0. And then he gets shelled in Cincinnati, giving up 6 earned runs on 11 hits in just 4 innings, dropping his record to 0-6. And the team record when Steven Matz was pitching, 2-8. 2-8. So after that game, enough was enough. He finally gets demoted to the bullpen to try and just figure out what the heck is going on. The Cardinals are losing just about every time he's out there. He's not getting them deep into games, and he's throwing a ton of pitches, and he's getting hit more times than not. So nothing really working. His next 8 appearances, all in relief. And he doesn't pitch horribly. 5 earned in 16 innings, 5 walks compared to 15 strikeouts. So you like the better balance there. 2.81 ERA. You're not going to be upset about that. The problem is the team still stinks. The team is still terrible. They lose all 8 games that Steven Matz appears in as a relief pitcher. So at this point of the season, we're in July now. Steven Matz has pitched in 18 games, and the Cardinals are 2-16 in those games. I'm not saying it's all his fault. I'm not putting the blame on Steven Matz, but wow, right? Wow. 2-16 in the 18 times that Steven Matz has taken the mound. He's a combined 0-7 with an ERA of 5.02. Just gross. But due to injuries, due to bad performances, due to the lack of depth that the Cardinals have as far as starters go by this point, he's got to go back in the rotation. on July 9th against the White Sox. And I remember when they made the announcement, I was like, oh my God, this is where we are. We have to put Matz back in. What? That's where we are. That's how it was. That's how bad 2023 had gotten. But what do you know? Steven Matz thrives. Steven Matz thrives. He ends up coming in. The season, by the way, toast by this point already, so it didn't really matter. But when we talk about a few bright spots from last year, I would say Steven Matz's stretch from July 9th through August 12th as a starter was one of them. Like, Matz dominates the White Sox in his first appearance. Now, again, it's the White Sox. They were horrible last year too. But still, 9 punchies over 5 1/3 innings of shutout ball. Cardinals win 4-3. No decision for Matz, by the way. Still doesn't have a W. Has a little hiccup in his next start against the Nationals, but then on July 20th against the Cubs, he allows 1 run over 5 innings, 6 strikeouts, and finally gets his first win of the season. Oh, boy. He goes on to actually win 3 of his next 4 starts. And during the time that he's back in the rotation, he goes 4-0 with a 1.86 ERA. He strikes out 38 against just 7 walks. That is huge. That is huge. The team goes 6-1 in those starts. Now, granted, it's not like he was pitching against Murderers Row in those games. He was throwing against the White Sox, the Nationals, the Cubs, the Rockies, and the Royals in 6 of those 7 starts. The one game that they lost that he started is against the Diamondbacks. Not that he pitched awful or anything like that, but they still lost. But not the greatest competition, okay? Let's be honest with each other here. Not the greatest competition, but let's not bring the mood down. Let's not ruin this. Let's not throw water on the fire that we got cooking. He looked good, borderline dominant in these starts. But then what happens? He gets hurt, suffers that lat strain, goes on the IL, never returns. That's the end of his 2023 season. Finishes 4-7 with a 3.86 ERA, which, I don't know, considering how things started, a little bit encouraging for 2024, right? From May 29th to his final start. And so this is combined with relief appearances and his starts at the end of the year. Steven Matz goes 4-1 with a 2.14 ERA over 15 appearances, 7 of those starts. Opponents hit just 200 against him. Again, encouraging, but do you trust him? Do you trust him? Do you trust Steven Matz to be that guy and be on the mound more times than not this year? Like, can he get to 29 starts? That's the issue. He says he's been doing some things differently this offseason, switching up the routine a little bit to help ensure that he's on the field as much as possible in 2024. So I'm going to tell you about some of the things he's done to be the same Matz that we got at the end of last year and be able to answer the bell every 5th day. So we'll get into that next on Locked On Cardinals. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks. If you're like one of those people who likes to go floating and stuff like that, roof rack good for the canoes or whatever it might be that you own. Especially if you're like somebody who likes to go into the country and you like to go camping and stuff. Kind of a big deal. How about exhaust kits? LED headlights. Is your vision getting a little worse at night? LED headlights are nice and more. They've got it. Whether you're into speed, power, style, it's all available at eBay Motors. They've got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. That's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. So John Denton at MLB.com released an article about Steven Matz and his offseason and how he's switched up and changed his routine a little bit to make himself more durable this season. According to Denton, rather than being reactive with the various twinges and bouts of soreness he would occasionally feel in his shoulder, Matt's worked this offseason to be more proactive by undergoing physical therapy sessions prior to throwing. So he's getting the rub down done on the pitching shoulder before he goes out and throws. So, normally you would go down to the bullpen, you do a little bit of stretching or whatever, and then you start tossing, right? No, he's doing therapy sessions prior to this to make sure things are nice and heated up and loose. And he's 32. He's 32 now. He's apparently learned that sometimes less is more when it comes to throwing sessions. Apparently, Matt's purposefully didn't report to the Cardinals complex until last week to avoid overuse this spring. His goal, according to this article, for the season is to make all his starts. Plain and simple. That's what he wants to do. Hasn't been able to do that since joining the Cardinals. In fact, he's made less starts over the last two seasons, 27 total, than he made in that final year in Toronto before the Cardinals signed him. He made 29 starts that year. And he's had more appearances because he's had to do some bullpen stuff, but he's only thrown 3 more innings in 2 seasons worth than he did that year in Toronto. He told Denton this offseason, I learned to turn down the volume a little bit. Instead of throwing 4 times a week, going to 3. Let's go into PT before throwing. That's physical therapy, by the way. Before throwing, making sure all the tissues are right and checking the boxes. Obviously, the goal is to make all my starts. So we got together and said, what do I have to do that? We put a plan together and tried to stay really consistent with everything. Another thing that he's been doing, which awesome, he's been working out with new staff ace Sonny Gray in Nashville before coming to Jupiter. And he said this about spending time with Sonny Gray, that he's focused on the field, he's focused in the gym, and he's very meticulous with his craft. I'm really looking forward to learning from that. And I think that's something that is going to go a long way. As great as Sonny Gray is on the field, we know he's a fantastic pitcher. He's your new ace, but he's also got the attitude and the work ethic that you want the other Cardinal pitchers to emulate. Be exactly like him. Be exactly like him. This is how it's done in the major leagues. The way Sonny Gray goes about his business, the way he is on the mound, his demeanor. All of you should be trying to be like him. All right? Don't look at some of the things that you've seen over the years and think that's the way things are done. Sonny Gray is going to set a new standard. Lance Lynn is going to show you what the standard should be as well, as far as how you go about things, the attitude on the mound. I love the Lance Lynn fire. Kyle Gibson, as far as I've read and been told, is exactly like this as well. These are the kind of guys you want your young players learning from. You want Zach Thompson and Matthew Liberatore and Tekoa Roby and Sim Robertson and all these guys that are going to be the future starters of your team at some point. You want them acting like these guys on the mound and how they go through their business each and every day. And Steven Matz, despite being a veteran, is learning this as well. Maybe Miles Mikolas picks up some of this stuff from these guys. That's the idea. That's the idea of the clubhouse leadership stuff that they've brought in this year. Be like these guys. That's the idea. They want them to see an example of how it's supposed to be done. And just do it that way. That's the idea. As far as what he and the team took from last year's rough season, Steven Matz said, individually, I think we're all hungry, and collectively, the Cardinals are such a winning organization that we don't want to be a part of what happened last year. Everybody tasted that failure, and it fuels you to reflect on what went wrong, learn from that, and take the next step this year. Now, one of the differences between last year and this year is that if team-wise, is if Matz goes down, and odds are he will at some point. It is what it is. You've got Matthew Liberatore and Zach Thompson as your next guys up to make a start or two or three, whatever it may be. Personally, I like those options better than last year's, which were Dakota Hudson and Jake Woodford. But that's just me. Maybe you don't feel the way. Maybe you don't trust Liberatore and Thompson, and that's fine. You can have your opinion on that. But going into it thinking that Hudson and Woodford were going to be fine, we learned the hard way that they were not. We learned the hard way. We were hopeful. So was the Cardinals front office, and it didn't work out. Didn't work out at all. So Zip's projections on Matz this year: 6-6, 3.99 ERA, and just 103 and 2/3 innings. Now, last year he only threw 105. He missed a lot of time last year, so 103 seems a little bit low if he's going to be a starter all year, but that's where he's at because he hasn't shown the ability that he can stay on the field yet. So I don't blame Zips for those projections. You taking the over or the under on 103 innings from Matz this year? I'm going to stay positive and take the over. I'm not saying he's going to throw 180 innings by any means, but give me like 135. I'll take that. But let me know your thoughts on Matz in the comment section below and on Twitter X. Before we wrap things up here, I've got some early photos from stuff this morning at spring training, courtesy of some of the reporters that are down there, because there's a dozen of them. So Katie Wu, Jeff Jones, Derek Gould, a whole bunch more. Athletic, Jeff Jones with the Belleville, STLtoday.com, all of the places that are covering the Cardinals. They're all down there right now, which is great. I'm really jealous. But we got a picture. I'm going to throw this one up. This one's from Derek Gould. You can see that one on YouTube there. New ace, Sonny Gray, throwing to Wilson Contreras. The first thing I notice about Sonny Gray, first off, legs. Look how powerful the legs are. Like, because he's not a big guy. Like, Sonny Gray's not like 6'4" or something. Like, he's pretty short for a starting pitcher or any pitcher, to be honest. But look at all the power in the legs right there. Obviously, takes care of himself very, very well. The other thing I noticed, the glove color. It's like a light blue. I don't know if that's you can use that on away games on Saturdays. That can be your glove, but I don't know about the rest of the time. I don't know if that's going to look good with the home uniforms or anything, but whatever. Speaking of uniforms, I don't know if you guys saw this online today. This one courtesy of Jeff Jones. New Cardinals uniforms. Fanatics made them for all the teams this year, so everyone's uniforms are going to look this way. But maybe I'm just being picky, but does the lettering look a little small? Like, my first glance at it, I made the joke that it looks like one of those uniforms you ordered from overseas. You're trying to save a couple of bucks and you think you're getting a really good deal, and then it shows up and then it's just something's just off. That's what I feel like looking at that. Like, doesn't it just seem odd? Like, the letters aren't big enough. Like, the number stands out. I don't know. It's just not even. I don't know. Maybe I showed my wife and she was like, I don't see anything wrong with this. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe I'm just being too picky. What are your thoughts on these uniforms? And apparently there's been some complaining already. If you're reading the tweet on there, they look cheap, said one of the players about them. So I kind of agree. Anyway, they also announced who the City Connect jersey teams are going to be this year, and we already knew the Cardinals were going to get one, so it's not like breaking news or anything. Dodgers are getting a second one. I guess Oakland and the Yankees are the only ones who haven't had one yet. But anyway, looking forward to seeing what the Cardinals got. And they got that hashtag for the Lou going. So I wonder if that's something with the Lou is going to be on that jersey now. Sounds like a very City Connect thing to have on there. Maybe just the Lou. I don't know. We'll find out eventually. But let me know your thoughts on everything we've talked about today. Steven Matz, the new uniforms. Let me know what you think about those. Want to thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on Twitter, X at LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Please like and subscribe on YouTube to help our channel and love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason, and I'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.